Hey folks, a couple of days ago, I bought a Nikon L35 AF on Facebook Marketplace, and the shutter button keeps getting stuck, but not always. Like, I know that everything works, like the flash works, the autofocus works, the motors work sometimes. So if you have any idea what's going on, I would really appreciate that. Anyhow, in perhaps more important news, on Tuesday, Democrats secured numerous potentially historic wins. Zoran Mamdani was elected as the mayor of New York City. Abigail Spanberger was elected governor of Virginia, while Democrats achieved a supermajority in the state Senate. J.D. Vance's half-brother got his ass handed to him in the Cincinnati mayoral race. Proposition 50 passed in California, temporarily allowing California Dems to counter Texas Republicans' attempts to steal seats in the House of Representatives, while calling for a constitutional amendment to ban this from ever happening again in the future. But overall, liberals and the occasional leftist saw meaningful gains across the country. And everybody and their mother has their own take on it. So before we move forward, let me give you mine. Republicans lost power because they are unpopular. Republicans gained power in the last election because Democrats, particularly Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, were unpopular. At the base level, that's it. Liberals and leftists were motivated to get out and vote against Republicans, while Republicans were not particularly motivated to get out and vote for Republicans. Don't get me wrong, not every election was won simply because nobody likes Republicans. I think it's fair to say that many people voted for Mamdani more than they voted against Sliwa or the other guy. But the push-pull factor, I think, is pretty clear. Full disclosure, due to incredibly poor planning on my part, I did not vote in this election. Yeah, I am embarrassed about that fact, but also I usually do, so my bad this time. In any event, I know it's tempting for the internet neo-Nazis who accidentally clicked on this video to try and pathologize what happened. About a week before the election, one right-wing YouTuber whose content appears to largely consist of calling women ugly by putting Snapchat filters over their faces and, no joke, selling an ebook of his own tweets for $13, posted a snippet of his manifesto that I think properly encompasses what one wing of the party is thinking right about now. And yes, I am going to read you the whole thing. If you haven't heard this by now, I think you deserve to. For context, a woman made the mistake of posting her political opinions online. Happens to the best of us. This is it, friends. This is where I come from. These are the fires in which my disgust was forged. The vacant stare, the Miss America smile, the trappings of middle-class conformist consumerism, the self-assured, momentary, tell-me-I'm-pretty pose clashing with the lack of effort and self-presentation and the impatience of choosing an unflattering background, the smug, condescending delivery of the message, I have done what you warned me not to do. All of it completely irrelevant to the topic at hand, forced awkwardly in front of it, obscuring it, replacing it, upstaging it, or so she hopes. Standing between you and what matters, she says only, look at me, look at the difficulty I've caused for you, witness the joy that I can only derive from being your problem. This is not about politics. She doesn't understand them. She doesn't even think she knows better than you. She only knows that you can't tell her what to do. She doesn't even think she has power. She only knows you have even less, and this is where she places her heart. When the bill for her foolishness comes due, oh, how her expression will change. No longer a bold and toothy smile, now a pouting bottom lip, no longer a triumphant hand in presentation of her own radiance, now a through-the-eyebrows scowl, arms folded, no longer an empowered, educated feminist, now a hapless princess in need. A real man pays the bill without asking. She offers nothing. She demands everything. She will never be held accountable for the destructiveness of her choices. She will be celebrated then as she is now, not for her contributions, but because where she is celebrated is where she will choose to be. She is the table, and the table is set, and she has placed her order, and all that now remains is waiting to be served. So it's safe to say they're having a normal one. A fun authoritarian extension of this mindset can be seen in this interaction between Jack Posobiec and the world's second sorest loser, Carrie Lake. Posobiec says, 2026 will be worse if we don't course correct, to which Lake replies, and mail-in ballots, return to election day, not election month, vote in small precincts and count in small precincts, no machines. Very simple, a whole lot cheaper, and reliable, honest results. To which Posobiec, of course, responds, amen. It bears repeating that much like all other Republican election-denying claims, everything Lake implied here is complete nonsense. Increasing the amount of time citizens have to participate in the democratic process does not reduce the accuracy or validity of election election results. They would have been able to prove that if it were true. It just ensures that everyone has the chance to cast their ballot. The reason Lake has a problem with this is precisely because it more accurately reflects the will of the people. Thanks to social forces that are hopefully fairly obvious to you, marginalized people are much less likely, on average, to be able to find themselves able to take time off of work or childcare to show up at a polling place on a specific Tuesday in November. It also so happens that marginalized people tend not to like fascists very much, on account of being its first victims and all that. In essence, Lake and Posobiec have a similar attitude to that Joker cosplayer from earlier. They view the people who consider them repugnant as a piece that must be removed from the board entirely. If the people reject their ideology, then the people must not be allowed agency. And of course, this appears in stark contrast to their opposition. California's Prop 50 was openly marketed as an unfortunate decision that should not be permitted, where Republicans have been cheating at every conceivable opportunity really for decades, but especially in the last 10 years, Democrats are only just now starting to return fire. And even as they do, they still afford Republicans plenty of outs. If you don't like Proposition 50, fight to pass a constitutional amendment that stops it from ever happening again. But of course, Republicans don't want to do that because it would mean giving up one of their cheat codes. The authoritarian mindset then develops a little bit further here with the response from Nazi diaper wrestling announcer Matt Walsh.
Let's get you guys over here. Now we have Internay and we have Tater. They're going to be wrestling out here in the cold, in the mud.
Mamdani's win had nothing to do with the economy, nothing to do with whatever bullshit the pundits are selling. Mamdani won because he appealed to the tribal interests of the foreigners who have taken over the city. The longer that voters had lived in New York, the less they supported Mamdani. That's the whole story. Ultimately, I think this is the purest form of fascist cope I'm responding to here. Mamdani ran a remarkably issues-focused campaign, constantly jumping at the opportunity to talk about affordable housing, free buses, and taxation of the wealthy, while largely relegating his identity-based talking points to direct responses. Sure, he talked about his religious upbringing when his opponent artificially lengthened his beard to play into anti-Muslim stereotypes, or when his name was tied to 9/11 simply because of the color of his skin, but that's not a Mamdani problem, that's a conservative/Cuomo problem. If you try to link a man to a crime that was committed when he was 10 years of age because he's got the wrong amount of melanin, you don't get to act shocked when he calls you a dumbass. The underlying premise of Walsh's complaint is complete nonsense. Yes, immigrants were more likely to vote Dem in this election because the Republican Party is actively hostile to them. It is completely unremarkable to say that the marginalized population you denigrated doesn't like you very much. The US Constitution at least purports to guarantee franchise to all its citizens because a government by the people is one of its fundamental stated values, and thankfully it makes good on that 100% of the time, no notes. If you don't like that idea, get the fuck out. See if Russia will take you. Every immigrant Mamdani voter is 100 times the American that Matt Walsh is, and I do not say that lightly. The ultimate point here is that every pundit responding this way to election results they dislike fundamentally agrees with this guy who forgot to dog whistle, writing, "The lesson is not to appeal to liberal women. The lesson is to repeal women's right to vote. You don't argue with insanity. You mitigate it." When they're unpopular, they will openly, proudly declare their intent to enforce their own popularity using the state if necessary. But thankfully, not every right-winger is ready to hit the pedal labeled totalitarianism just yet. At first, this section was going to be about the contingent of Republicans who've tried to deny that this was a loss for them at all, at folks trying to argue that this is just an example of liberals winning in blue states, big whoop. I had a specific tweet in mind, but I cannot find it, again, for the life of me, and in my search, I found that opinion was not especially common online. Don't get me wrong, it definitely still exists, but there's a much more interesting small group I'd like to talk about. Specifically, I'd like to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek openly acknowledges that the Republicans are in a bad spot right now. Here's his take.
We got our asses handed to us in New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City. Democrats swept all three. There's two key lessons for Republicans. Listen carefully. Number one, our side needs to focus on affordability. Make the American dream affordable. Bring down costs, electric costs, grocery costs, healthcare costs, and housing costs, and lay out how we're going to do it. And number two, cut out the identity politics. It doesn't suit Republicans. It's not for us. That's the woke left's game, not ours. We don't care about the color of your skin or your religion. We care about the content of your character. That's who we are.
Right off the bat, this is interesting rhetoric. Vivek's solution, and to be clear, I think he's at least a little bit right here, is to adopt Democrats' framing. Republicans have fully failed to meet the affordability challenge, which they'll tell you is because brown mothers of 3 have been eating too much food, but I'm beginning to suspect may have had more to do with the fact that the people who decide what things cost all had first-class tickets to Trump's inauguration. And unless I'm missing something, it has been a long-ass time since that has happened, with the possible exception of the Gaza genocide, for which public opinion has shifted significantly in the last couple years, though I think that's a unique case. For years now, we've been on the defensive, forced to accept Republican framing of issues to maintain a positive public profile. So, yeah, on some level, it's a little bit nice to see the shoe is on the other foot. But the problem for Vivek here is that he is completely out of date. Republicans very much care about identity politics. In fact, it's pretty much their thing now. The comments under Ramaswamy's video are fucking venomous. Those authoritarians I told you about earlier are coming out in droves to explain that, no, they very much do care about skin color and religious dominance. Comments like, the best way to focus on affordability? Deport all foreigners, which includes people with the surname Ramaswamy. We do care about religion. Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. We bring down costs by removing non-whites from our country. You're part of the problem. Go back to India. We do care about the color of your skin and your religion. Neither of yours are American. The lesson? Deport all you browns. And while we must acknowledge that Twitter has a higher than average concentration of neo-Nazis, I'm willing to bet a decent number of folks watching this video have started to see this shit bleed into their personal lives as well. Angry cultists and groypers popping up on the edges of your social circle, former Trump lovers who now question his leadership because he doesn't hate the Jews enough. Now, if this week is anything to go off of, those sorts of people do not have the numbers to take this country over if voter turnout remains high. But therein lies the problem. The elephant in the room. We have been here before. Donald Trump lost in 2020. On more than one occasion, the midterms have gone pretty darn well for the Democrat Party, and yet here we are, still circling the drain. And the reason for that is obvious, of course. Democrats don't fucking do anything, and even when they do, they're terrible at marketing it. The cycle we're in right now has looked a little something like this. Elect a Republican. He makes things significantly worse. Well, that sucks. Let's elect a Democrat. He barely even tries to do anything to fix the shit that the Republican fucked up and kind of sort of funds a genocide. Well, that sucks. Let's elect a Republican. Oh, he makes things even worse than before. Well, that sucks. Let's elect, and hopefully you take my meaning. On a policy level, even centrist Democrats are miles better than the average Republican, but none of that matters when they can't muster the energy to even attempt to do something with that. The only way this cycle is broken is if Democrats see Zoran Mamdani's victory, see Americans voting for something for the first time in many of their lives, and learn their lesson. And that's where you, the viewer, come in, kind of, sort of. When I say the Democrats need to learn their lesson, I don't mean the physical human beings running the Democrat Party. What, you think Schumer and Pelosi are going to quit being demons all of a sudden? What I mean is that the party as a living entity needs to learn its lesson. And I've seen anecdotal signs of it myself, average run-of-the-mill liberals suddenly becoming interested in the idea of more radical change, folks you would not expect getting real cool about a lot of things real quick. And ultimately, I'm just sitting here telling you stuff on a screen, but here's my take. Enjoy your weekend of living out or whatever, but after that, if you have Democrat politicians, whether local, state, or federal, fucking make yourself their problem. They've seen firsthand both how fragile their position is and how much less fragile it could be. Don't let them forget that shit. If you can get involved, help the actual left wing of your local Democrat Party primary some of the centrist cowards who helped pave the way for Trump's various victories. And I'm not gonna lie, that shit feels good. You like how it feels when a cool guy becomes mayor of a city you don't even live in? Imagine what it's like to be part of a proper movement. The people who want to strip you of your freedoms are politically active. Don't let them catch you resting. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying this to myself as much as I'm saying it to you. The times that I've been most involved in local politics have been some of the best for me, and I, as much as you, need to be a bigger part of it. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Consider subscribing and liking and moneying. Good night.